falsehood, you're faced with two options. You can accept it or you can reject it. The basis upon which we take one of these actions is a product of our critical thinking capabilities and a desire to know what is true instead of confirming our bias. A lie can travel halfway around the world while the truth is still putting on its shoes. On Brainstorm, we choose the hard truths over the comforting lies. Reason, compassion, skepticism. This is the Brainstorm Podcast.
All right. To those listening live or to our patrons, welcome back. To those listening weekly, welcome to the Brainstorm Rectable, the Brainstorm production where we spend some time discussing one topic or many, depending on the way the conversation flows. This is an open brainstorming session where I kick things off with some thoughts and we see where things go from there. I'm Cory, and my panel tonight are Rene.
Hello.
Lisa.
It's rectum time.
And of course, the always amazing Dave.
Talked about space, now we'll talk about rectums.
Yeah, of course. We're broadcasting live from Roman Empire Studios in Regina, Saskatchewan, and today is October 26th, 2018. So, I'm not really sure where to start with this one, but I guess there was a bit of a few things that went on in the news in the last 2 weeks, and one of the ones...
How there's something that just happened yesterday, but anyway.
Yeah, one of the big ones was Elizabeth Warren and her DNA test for Indigenous ancestry. And there was a lot of back and forth, and a lot of people were taking things that she said out of context, and there was a lot of people who were really defending her, and a lot of people who were really attacking her. And there was, of course, the Republicans who were trying to get some political gain out of this. So I know we've talked about DNA in the past and how it doesn't it doesn't really cover culture in any way. It doesn't. So I don't know.
I kind of think it's a little bit of, well, it's a lot of much ado about nothing. I think it can be a criticism of Elizabeth Warren that she's made a big deal out of it when in reality, I think all it is, it's a family story that she is somehow latched onto and then has made it part of...
Okay, so she, whatever, I think my understanding is she kind of mentioned it once, and then Donald Trump is the one who makes fun of her, but she's not letting it go. And I kind of get that she was trying to kind of stick it to him, but it seemed kind of...
Well, from the one article I read, and I didn't realize this myself, but I guess she's made a slightly bigger issue about it before.
Okay.
Like she has made a point of, yes, I'm related, this is in my family line and blah, 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 blah. But I mean, it's kind of that standard thing. Like part of it is, I think she's a politician. So what do they want to do? They want to relate to the common person. So they trot out these different little stories to make them relatable, even though they're still just fucking politicians. But
I feel like she is a politician, of course, but she actually hasn't been a politician her whole career. Like she was a professor at Harvard, right? She actually hasn't been a senator that long. So I feel like the reason, like I feel like this happening was a political misstep. Like I feel like, and because she's so prominent, it happens on the national stage. Like whereas if she'd been in politics for decades, she could have, she would have learned lessons like this earlier. But like it doesn't quite land right. It's just sort of a weird thing to do. Well, I get that she was trying to defend herself, but it was just not quite.
Well, I mean, I think also part of the problem is the left has a problem with eating its own. I mean, she's a decent senator. She's trying to do good things, but this is a fuck up. Like, it's right. In reality, it means nothing. Like, what was the math on it? Like, 6 to 10 generations ago, she'll
have like 1,024th or something.
Yeah. In other words, nothing.
Yeah.
So it's, like I said, I think it's a family story that she's kind of embellished. And of course, then people like, native groups are going like, what the fuck are you doing? Like,
right.
You're taking the claim, but you have no connection, which is a valid point.
Right.
And, but family stories, there's these family legends. Like, I was thinking when I was reading this, in my family, our family lores were related to Lord Horatio Nelson.
Right. I was thinking the same thing. My mother used to tell me that we were related to royalty because we do have a sliver of British blood in our family.
Yeah. Well,
and it's like, well, everybody figures that, right?
Well, that's just it. Is, we're from a long line of scullery maids. No one tells that story.
Right. It's the introduction of DNA into these kinds of subjects is pretty weird, I think.
Well, I think the part of the problem is it's still it feeds into this European weird idea about blood, right? Because exactly, through these, because I just watched Bram Stoker's Dracula, through these veins runs the blood of blah, 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 blah. And he makes such a big deal about it. In reality, it doesn't mean shit.
It's also kind of almost like a fascist thing, like a purity,
right.
Racial purity,
Yeah.
like social Darwinism, sort of yucky sort of things like that. Like,
Not
It does-
necessarily fascist.
It does smell a little fascist.
Well, it's the same thing, right? You're talking about, it's not even purity, but suddenly it gives you legitimacy to call this because you've got one thousandth whatever,
Right.
It means nothing, but it gives you a story. And I don't know. I think it's much to do about nothing. And unfortunately, I think it is a political mess up because Trump is being Trump and calling her Pocahontas, and
he was doing that before.
Yeah.
That's why she did this. But I feel like she's been goaded into doing something that really was kind of in poor taste.
He kind of came out with like a weird, like almost I'll give $1 million to a charity,
Which
if you
is
can
why
prove this
she
thing,
supposedly
right?
did this.
Yeah. But then he came
Don't
back
play
and
his
said,
game. Don't
I didn't,
play his game.
I didn't say
I didn't say that,
I didn't
yeah.
mean that.
She should have known better than to play his game.
But
Right.
well, I mean, how many other people have played that game with him? Like,
and lost.
because he's full of
Because he'll
shit.
never admit he's wrong.
He'll never admit he's wrong. He doesn't pay for shit unless he's sued.
Yeah. Although I think Aaron Rabbi made a good point. Like when you're playing, what game should you be playing? Like what moves do you make when you're playing against a pigeon that's shitting all over the board?
Yeah.
like almost no matter what, he's going to be going around declaring victory and shitting on the board. And
Yeah. I mean, I think the problem is because, let's face facts, most of us don't truly understand how DNA works. Like,
No, that's
what
true.
is
Yeah,
DNA? Like, I
that's
mean,
true.
yes, we have the 23andMe DNA test, which I watch the ads and I'll admit, I'm kind of curious to do it. I don't have the extra $200 or whatever it is,
Right.
just to see what it would show up. But my instinct would be to call 98% of it bullshit because they'll be like, oh, you're 2% this, that, and that. The other thing, I'm like, those are areas that only came into, they're, you're 2% Dominican
Right.
Republican, from
Right.
the Dominica Republica or whatever. And it's like, that's only been around for about 200, 300 years.
That was something that
and made from slaves imported from West Africa. So like, how can you trace it to that?
there was some discussion about there are people who can actually draw like indigenous lineage and are part of tribes now, but wouldn't show up with those particular markers in a DNA test like that.
Well, because it all depends on the DNA database.
Right, exactly. And much of those markers are found in like South American areas or areas of South America. So it just like, I don't know. It seems like a weird thing.
Yeah, I think it's much ado about nothing. And it shows more of that weird idea that weird to use a, I don't even know if that's the proper term, but European-esque idea of blood and lineage, you know, and it's like, it doesn't mean anything. Like, I mean, of course she's going to use the word Cherokee because that's one of the bigger tribes and one of the more known tribes. You know, of course, if her family was making bullshit up, you know, 3 generations ago, that's the name they would pick.
Right. And there's also the idea that, like, I mean, nearly everybody, like so many people in the U.S. have one person who has that story that they tell that, like, oh, my great-great-grandfather was, you know, part Cherokee or
I mean, I was
whatever.
told from my biological father's side that, yeah, he's supposed to have Native ancestry, and I'm like, so what?
Right.
You know, and I would, my instinct is to call bullshit.
Right.
You know, like,
yeah,
you know, it means nothing.
Yeah, no, I gotta agree.
I think it's much ado about nothing because, like, it's creating a feeding frenzy that's attacking Elizabeth Warren, where it might be worthy of a discussion to have, but you're in the time of the midterms. Do you really want to do this? Like,
do you think that, like, yeah, do you think that this is even in the consciousness of people anymore? Like, I mean, it's been almost 2 weeks since this happened. Like, do people think about this anymore?
For the most part, no, but it'll pop itself up if need be.
It's like, because every week is basically like an entire year in the current timeline, right?
Well, it depends.
So much happens.
On the left side, on the Democratic side, no, that'll never be forgotten. On, you know, Trump forgets what he said 2 sentences ago.
True.
Like,
true.
I don't know. I think Trump was calling Elizabeth Warren Pocahontas just because he's a bully and it's a name calling and he's poking fun of her, and I think he's going to continue to do it. I think he would have continued to do it either way, but it would have been to her advantage to react as little as possible. It would have been to her advantage never to say it in the first place, honestly, because
right.
Because I mean, I was reading some stuff that I didn't know before that she's been kind of peppering different stuff with this claim for quite a while, which
I don't know really why. Like, my grandmother always told me that her husband's grandmother was Native, and she met her, and I assume that it's true. Like, I don't know, but you know, it doesn't mean that I would identify as a First Nations person because I feel like I haven't grown up in that culture. I haven't suffered the injustices. If I don't get treated in that way when I go around, you know what I mean? I don't,
right.
This is not how I identify. I just don't feel like I don't feel like it's my culture to claim.
Right.
So I feel like, I don't know. I would, it's just not but I mean, on the one hand, of course, none of us would exist without all of the grandparents that we've had. Right. And I wouldn't exist without this woman, but it's not something that's been passed down to me. And I feel like that's an important part of your
right.
Because we're not talking less about, to me, we shouldn't really be talking about race. We should be talking about culture. Right.
And specifically, like, Indigenous culture has faced almost extinction in a sense, right?
I mean, like, my ancestors are from, like, we're French Canadian, so presumably from France, although that's so long ago, nobody knows. And then my grandmother's parents came from Ireland, and my grandfather's parents came from Scotland. Okay, but I wouldn't go to Scotland and be like, oh, hey, I'm Scottish, because, like, this is not my culture. Like, I didn't grow up in it. I don't, you know what I mean? Like, it's just not. So,
it's not something that you claim. So.
Right. Like, I might say, oh, my great grandfather was Scottish, but it doesn't make me Scottish.
Right.
It's just not.
But
it'd be different if, like, say, a certain meal was passed down, and then, you know, that family made it, and then my grandmother made it, and then so and so made it. You know, like, that would be a different kettle of fish, and that I think.
If
it's
your
just
family
not.
kept up the culture, you know, at least you'd have the ties. Like, I mean, like, it's just like I was saying with this Elizabeth Warren, it's a family story that somehow has been passed down. Like on my grandfather's side, there's always this story that his father came from well-to-do family and blah, blah, blah. And like I said, the family histories, we came from Lord Horatio Nelson and whatever else. But as Mom has been digging back on it, there's a lot of it turns out to be bullshit.
Yeah. And the thing is, how is it relevant, right?
You know,
like especially Elizabeth Warren as a politician, what does this have to do with whatever climate change? What does this have to do with
in the end, it doesn't matter. But
housing market crisis, like what does it have to do with?
Other than it's a way she's been kind of marketing herself as.
Yeah, I don't know.
And you know, in normal political climate, it'd be a little distasteful. In the current climate right now, it's irrelevant.
Yeah.
I read some of the other articles you posted, and they make a much bigger deal of it, and they have a point.
Right.
They have a point, but you know, to tar and feather someone that, you know, I think Elizabeth Warren is a good senator so far from what I can see.
Right. But
to take her out at the knees over this, I don't know if I'm in a practical sense, I don't know if it's worth it. It's, you know, not right, but
yeah, and I'm probably as far left as you can fucking get, right?
I drew a diagram.
Yeah, that's right. But I consider these things, I try to be pragmatic, right? Yeah. And it's like, okay, so Elizabeth Warren, yeah, I think she fucked up.
Yeah.
You know, I don't think this was a thing she should have done. But I still think she is good for the constituents or the people in her area, you know? And I think that if she runs in 2020, we can't let this be what stops her from succeeding.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I mean. The problem is the left eats its own. They can make this into a big deal and then cut her out, you know, right at the knees.
I've also observed, I don't know if anyone else has found this, but I feel like they're like 20 years behind the times in terms of Indigenous relations in the States. Like they'll still call them Indians, and they'll still, like, they don't have any, you know what I mean? They don't have the same, I think, sensitivities we have in Canada. So not that we're, you know, a pillar of perfect, of how we treat our First Nations people, but it just in terms of public awareness, I think we're a lot stronger here.
I think it's also deal with how their history is. I mean, our
history ain't so good.
No. I'm not saying that at all. But ours is shady, but not.
I just feel like we've spoken
shady.
more about reconciliation in the past 10, 15, 20 years than certainly I've ever heard of. They just don't even seem to have any awareness.
Because how much of theirs was, send in the cavalry.
Yeah, it was more of a I hate to say, I wouldn't say less violent, but more genocidal. Is
more
that right?
Blatantly.
Yeah,
genocidal.
More blatantly genocidal.
Whereas Canada's problem was ours was forced assimilation. Theirs was
murder. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and also they have a much bigger population. So if they have, like, I think that, like, Chris Rock has a bit on this, right, where he says, you know, it's something to the effect of, you know, people say that black people are downtrodden, but you know who's really downtrodden? So he says American Indians. That's how he says it, right? American Indians. Because when's the last time you saw an Indian family at Red Lobster? Never. You know, he goes on. Because I guess it's just not a thing that people see there. Whereas where we are here, I mean, obviously you see First Nations people all the time. Like they're still here. So
yep, that's right. Yeah, that's right.
Isn't it terrible that we're like the standard for like leading the way?
Right.
Yeah, we're doing the best.
We're doing the best.
We're doing the
of
best,
the worst.
Best at the least.
It's just like,
it ain't good. It ain't good.
Yeah.
But in terms of public awareness, I think Canada is farther along than the States.
Oh, definitely, yeah. Just we have so much to do though. It's just unreal.
I hear you.
But anyway.
Okay, so I guess before we move on to the What's the Deal segment, I would like to maybe talk a little bit about pipe bombs and right-wing terrorism.
And the conspiracy theories that are already surrounding it.
Yeah. It seems like right away when these pipe bombs were being sent to clearly Democratic allies, the conspiracies had already started.
Oh, yeah. I made the mistake of, I didn't even read the articles. I just went straight to the comment section.
That is a mistake. Agreed.
It was morbidly funny. It was morbidly funny.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
I had people who are genuinely smart asking me if I thought these bombs were fake because they had a suspicion that they were fake, and to stir up the Democratic base or whatever.
Yeah, I've seen those. I've seen those
that
conspiracy already. Yeah,
it's like, okay, but now that they have a suspect in custody,
well, that's where the comment section conspiracies kicked in, which was quite funny. Is because they're like, oh yeah, because this guy was, it's quite interesting how this guy's, somehow with next to no information. I mean, like I said, I just went straight to the comment section. They're like, oh, this guy was homeless, but yet, he was able to get all the money together to mail these packages out and get the materials from the, to make the pipe bombs and da-da-da-da-da-da. And it's like, well, yeah, he had a van, but why are you assuming he was living in his van?
right?
There's next to no information out right now. So.
I know I think it was Paul Joseph Watson posted on Twitter or something about, he only followed 32 people and they were all Democrats. And so trying to imply that he's actually a left-wing, I guess, plant. I don't know. Fake bomber. Yeah. I don't know what the fuck.
Oh, they've already been saying it's a false flag operation.
That was my first thought, and I was like joking with my wife about that. I'm like, wait till they tell you it's a false flag.
Yeah,
no, they've already said that, and it's not even Alex Jones because he's not allowed. He's not allowed to be on next to anything.
His crazy has been banned.
Yeah.
I don't know.
There's all these pictures coming out of like this guy.
Oh yeah, he was at all the rallies, the rallies, and all this kind of stuff.
Here's it could be some mass diabolical Democrat ploy to garner sympathy before the midterms that they've never done before, and it's possible. It's possible, but the more probable, motivation is that, if you look at the rhetoric on the right, if you look at Fox News, if you look at even things Trump said, it's overtly violent. It's overtly attack your opponents. You know what I mean? And I'm not saying that they're inciting it, but there's 350 million people in the States. One loose cannon could easily just be like, no, I'm going to send pipe bombs to Democrats. It's just the most logical explanation it is just one person. It could be one guy who's doing something bad, and it may not. The simplest explanation is that, not that it's a vast political conspiracy.
It's just logic.
That's just probability.
How is it the Democratic Party could organize to create this false flag operation, send out all these pipe bombs to radicalize their base? But they couldn't organize enough to get Hillary elected in the first fucking place.
Yeah, exactly. Like they have some ability to do this. You're right.
Realistically, they lost the presidential election by 70,000 votes. Mm. They could have just organized just a little bit more and actually won.
Can I say something else about this? And this issue, and also the Khashoggi murder. Has anyone else noticed that Trump is sounding more reasonable lately, and it scares me? Not that I'm agreeing with him, not that I think he's not. I feel like he's gotten some media training.
Somebody gave him a piece of paper and said, read this.
No, I think that he's gotten some media training. So he's becoming a bit more cautious, and he's speaking more like a politician in these sort of, because he's for example, he's straight out condemned these pipe bombs.
Yeah, but
in the past, I feel like he would have been like, but it would have been really good if one of them had gone off. He would have made some sort of stupid, really, really,
Right.
really stupid
but
comment.
The problem is
like,
Yeah, maybe.
I feel like I'm alarmed because he seems to be getting slightly better at portraying himself and at not having these terrible sound bites that just totally exemplify how stupid he is. I feel like he's been given some media training that allow him to hide his crazy a little better, which scares me.
but not very well because
but better than before.
He said that
better than before.
He said that with a teleprompter, and then I was just driving here. I was listening to MSNBC on Sirius, and they had him on the sound without the teleprompters, and he said stupid shit.
Yeah,
They asked him if he was going to he's going to reach out to, the former presidents, and he's like, well, maybe if they ask me to, I will. And it's like,
actually, the late night jumped on him really quick and found and dug up enough to kind of show how stupid this was. He might be saying some things that are very controlled, and obviously he has people around him coaching him to do that. He has the whole time.
Sure, yeah.
And there are moments of that he's done before too.
Those are alarming me.
But then in the middle when he's at his rally, he's talking about they're showing these clips of him I was being very nice. I was being very nice to everybody. Did you notice that? Yeah, I wasn't yelling hysterically. I was being he was just being so.
You can hear him repeating the coaching that he's received. Be nice to everyone.
That's right.
Don't yell at no. I mean, and look at how he went off on Blasey Ford, the woman who testified against.
That's
I mean,
right.
he just. When he ad libs, he's vitriolic.
So my point is that even within that, he's still kind of trying to take jabs or point out that I'm not usually like this because this is what I actually think. It's I don't know. I don't know if this is a sign of any changing. It's just
that was
him.
That was the other thing I heard on the radio. It was in part of a scrum, and one of the reporters asked him. He's like, "Do you think?" this ramping up of the rhetoric is what's led to this. And he's like, or will you now tone down the rhetoric? Sorry. And he's just, no, I could, I think I have been restrained. I could really tone up the rhetoric, but I've been really, really restrained. And it's like, oh my God, the guy sent out how many bombs? Wow.
Yeah, that's pretty crazy.
He has no responsibility in it.
Okay, that guy is a narcissist. Narcissists do not take responsibility.
No, that's
especially not at that level. God, he doesn't even take responsibility for the actual things he himself chose to do with his own hands. He is certainly not going to take responsibility for influencing
and
someone.
other items of his body.
Ew.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
Orange penis.
It's got a very big head. Apparently, that's what they say.
I heard something about a mushroom something.
Toad from the Mario.
Where did we hear this from? What's our source?
Stormy Daniels.
Stormy Daniels.
Says he has a mushroom head penis.
Yep.
Yeah, he
Toad from Mario. Okay.
Yeah.
But orange.
Right.
Probably.
Does that get spray tan too? I don't know.
Yeah, maybe.
I'd rather not ponder that.
Well, I'm thinking about it now.
This is the most we've ever known about a president's penis, though.
No shit, eh?
That's not true. Didn't Monica Lewinsky describe?
Did she describe
Clinton's?
Bill's?
I think she did because she said because they were like, "Oh, did you really?" And she's like, "But I can describe it." And she described. I don't think we knew, but I think she described it to them.
Okay.
I believe that was a thing.
That could be. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, probably.
It certainly could have been.
My memory from the
I do
90s is a
not-
little hazy because I
Yeah.
wasn't that old, but I do recall something along those lines. Anyways.
I was thinking, I'm listening to the audiobook for, it's called Alt America, The Rise of the Radical Right, and by David Newert, I think is his name. And just before that, the pipe bombs happened, I was about halfway through this book, and I'm thinking, okay, so this is par for the course. This is just normal right-wing stuff. Every few years they have somebody who does this sort of thing, and of course it's always the same denials on as well from their media pundits, and it's always a false flag. It's always the same. I don't know. To see
Isn't
people,
it just most likely a crazy dude?
Yeah, well, I mean, who fits into this exact
Yeah,
rhetoric,
I mean,
right?
I know who's bought the Fox News, taken it too far, but still, there are millions of viewers of Fox News, etc., and most of them don't send pipe bombs to Democrats.
Most of them.
I doubt very much that it's orchestrated at some high level. It's probably just a crazy guy.
Yeah, no,
I guess
it's just par for the course for this type of rhetoric,
right? And it's a barometer for how things are in the States now. But I doubt it's orchestrated.
Yeah, no.
I can give the Democrats that, or the Republicans that. That's
yeah, they
not
didn't
much, but that's what I can
actively.
give them.
Yeah, get this guy to send pipe bombs, but it does
Probably
say something. I think.
I'm going to suggest that it's definitely not outside the realm of American governments to do things nefariously.
That's true,
but in this particular case,
says the Chilean.
Well, exactly. I mean, we did have a diplomat, who got blown up in a car bomb in the States. So I mean, it's a thing that can happen. I mean, they will kill you if they really want to. So, but in this particular case, I think it's a little different. Obviously, given the facts, it just seems like the logical explanation is the right one. So,
just a singular terrorist doing what he can to,
feeding off rhetoric, like you're saying.
Feeding off the rhetoric. Like if he goes to all the Trump, I mean, Trump's been saying how long that they're the press are the enemy of the people, and and
that
blaming everything on the Democrats
for so long. Actually, like Fox News is like, I just watched that documentary not that long ago, The Brainwashing of My Father or whatever, and a formerly Democratic guy spends all his time listening to right-wing media and turns into like the kind of person his family doesn't want to be around. And they went through the history of it quite a bit, and this is what this produces. I don't know.
And yet they always say the liberal side is so much dangerous. Oh, liberal media.
Yeah.
Antifa is so violent.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is how it has to be framed, right? Yeah. Or else you can't create people, you can't make people be violent just by telling them that hurting people is okay. You have to turn the enemy into something to be afraid of.
Yeah. I listen to a lot of Rachel Maddow. I got converted and I bought a pumpkin spice latte. I was brainwashed.
All right. With that, let's go to the what's the deal, I guess.
If you like what we're doing and want to help us keep the lights on, go become a patron at patreon.com/brainstorm podcast. You can hear the bonus half hour that we record every episode and get a shout out when you support the show. Become a patron for just $1 an episode at patreon.com/brainstorm podcast. Or you can support the show by ordering a t-shirt, mug or other gear from our store at caffeepress.ca/brainstorm podcast gear. If you can't afford to become a patron or buy gear, then why not give us a rating or write a review on iTunes or Stitcher? Every rating makes it easier for people to find us. Thanks for your support.
Hi, this is Dan, Ryan, and Matt with the Godless Revolution podcast. We've had a lot of great guests on this show, such as Russell Glasser, Dan Arrow, Brian Fields, David Silverman, Doug Mesner, a.k.a. Lucian Greaves, and Joey Kirkman, whom we love a lot.
We've also had a lot of really cool local guests. And we're a podcast that likes to fight for the separation of church and state and against anti-skepticism of all kinds.
You should give us a listen, because if you don't, you're going to be really sad.
Make your ears happy. Listen to the Godless Revolution podcast.
What's the deal with Aquaman?
What's the deal with decaf?
What's the deal with lampshade? What's the deal with
rape culture? Not a very funny subject.
That's less funny than lampshade, Cory.
Funny than lampshade. Okay, I read quite a bit on this, but most of what I took notes on was from the wiki page.
Did what you read say that rape culture is bad or good?
Oh, it all said it was bad.
Oh.
Yeah.
I'm learning something tonight, Cory.
Yeah. Well, hopefully somebody will. But yeah, so I guess according to Wikipedia, rape culture is a sociological concept for a setting in which rape is pervasive and normalized due to societal attitudes about gender and sexuality. Some of the behaviors that are included in this are victim blaming, slut shaming, sexual objectification, trivializing rape, denial of widespread rape, refusing to acknowledge the harm caused by sexual violence, or some combination of those things. The term itself came about in the 70s and was meant to show the ways in which society blamed the victims of sexual assault and normalized sexual violence. According to Wikipedia, when it came out, most Americans assumed that rape, incest, and spousal abuse were rare, and the concept of rape culture made the claim that rape was actually common in American culture and that it was one of the ways that societal misogyny and sexism were revealed. I think that it should probably say not just American culture. I think it's not.
Cory, I'm pretty sure Wikipedia has never been wrong or inaccurate in any way.
Right.
I am really offended right now.
Yeah.
Are you accusing Wikipedia of ethnocentrism? I can't pronounce it right now, but yeah.
I'm accusing Cory of Wikipedia-ism.
Here's the isms.
There's
taking over, too.
certainly a little bit American-centric. How about that? There were two main books that came out in the 70s. Noreen Connell and Cassandra Wilson wrote Rape, the first source book for women, and Susan Brown Miller wrote Against Our Will, Men, Women, and Rape. These books included a number of first-hand accounts of women who were raped and had the intent to show that rape was far more common than was generally believed. And there was also a film in 1975 that was actually titled Rape Culture, and it went into the rape of men, the rape of women, and had discussions with victims as well as perpetrators. So rape culture is essentially a culture in which rape is excused in a number of ways. Victim blaming, focusing on false accusations, accusing all women of making false accusations, and calling rape rough sex are examples of how rape culture excuses rape. Victim blaming can also take on a number of forms, such as calling attention to the victim's past promiscuity, pointing out that the victim was what the victim was wearing, claiming that the victim didn't fight back enough, or claiming that the victim shouldn't have drank so much. There's also people who just say women are all liars, and that some people say that the victims deserve it. Susan Brown Miller brought up 3 ideas in her book, Against Our Will. The first was, she pointed out that, well, I guess that these ideas brought up kind of an awareness about the myths around rape. And first she pointed out that any woman can be a victim, and it's not tied to any age, size, ethnicity, or status. Women are not victims of rape because they are bad or misbehaved. There is no personal characteristic that leads women to be more likely to be targeted. Second, she pointed out that any man can be a rapist, not just evil men or the mentally ill, which feels a little ableist to say. I don't know. To blame it on mental illness, it doesn't seem like it would have been. I guess in the 70s that was probably more common.
That one's not one I've heard a lot recently.
Right.
Mental illness as an explanation.
No.
I think what you're talking about, like in terms of rape culture, the explanation is this is our culture. This is okay. Like
Right.
it's actually the opposite of abnormal. Mental illness is considered an abnormal brain.
Right,
It's actually
yeah.
it's just, of course he's going to have sex with her, she's drunk and blah, blah, right? Like it's just like
Yeah, it's just exactly. Yeah, I can't say it any better than you did.
I had to womansplain it to you, Cory.
Yeah, that's right. I put a note in here. Many men of many different stripes are rapists, and as much as the crime of rape is evil, they can be just another normal dude who feels entitled to women's bodies. They can even be Supreme Court justices. And the third idea was that rape can occur in many different ways and doesn't always fit the violent, forceful rape in a back alley type model that many people were taught. We know that it includes things like date rape or situations where someone is too inebriated to consent, or where the consent is given initially but then has been revoked. In the past, spousal and partner rape was also not even considered rape, which seems absurd now.
I think in some countries, still you can't.
Yeah,
you cannot be charged with raping your spouse.
Maybe even in some states, still in the U.S.
Could be.
I don't think so.
I don't know. They got some strange laws in some of those places.
I may be wrong, but I think it's actually relatively. I think there's only like a handful of countries left for you. I may be wrong, but I thought I was wrong once, but I was mistaken. But I don't think I'm wrong on this one. Anyways, maybe I'm wrong.
So there are some different takes on what causes a rape culture, with some claiming that it is about power and dominance, while some just think that it's part of the culture and it's just men feel entitled and that they have a denigrated view of women where they don't consider them to have personal autonomy. This can be perpetuated by sexist jokes or just different attitudes. I talked to some guys in my day-to-day life who have a way of turning every conversation into a conversation about how all women are X type of stereotype. And yeah. There's also
hashtag not all women.
Right.
Yeah.
There's also a thing that I came across in my reading called bimbo culture, which
that rings a bell for some reason.
Yeah. In which women are considered to be nothing more than sex dolls with no personality or autonomy of their own, separate from the men they are, quote unquote, meant to give pleasure to. Rape culture is considered always changing and adapting so that it will be considered legitimate. Yeah. And currently much of rape culture is filtered through lenses of gender roles and heteronormativity. But that could change if it suits those who commit rapes and or those who are in positions of power. An example might be when Donald Trump says that you can just grab women by the pussy, I guess.
I don't think he said, I guess. Well, the funny thing is, the people in power and the people who rape are a Venn diagram that do overlap.
Yes.
We know this.
Something...
Donald Trump is in the middle of those two circles.
That's right.
So is Kavanaugh, really.
Right, eh?
Well, at a different level, I should say. I mean, anyways.
I mean, Kavanaugh, I'm going to play lawyer here for a second and just say Kavanaugh's been accused of attempted.
Right.
And as for the gang rape thing, he was linked to being there, but never said he was part of it. That doesn't mean he's innocent of shit, but...
to be fair, he has never been tried for it. It was in the context of an extreme job interview that this came up.
That's
right?
kind of I have a problem with that. But yeah, that's exactly the problem.
Yeah, something that when I was thinking about this that came up in my memory was a trip to, you might remember, Mendoza. We went to the classic rock weekend.
Yep.
A few years ago, well, quite a few years ago, like
eons ago,
20 some odd years ago, 20-ish,
20-ish, yeah.
And I was drinking, and I met a woman there that she was drinking, and we went back to her tent, and then she got sick and threw up, and I mean, I stayed and helped her clean up or whatever. so that she wasn't sitting in vomit. But then I left. And then when I told the story after the fact to some of the guys that I knew, they questioned why I didn't have sex with her anyway. And that is, I think, part of that culture. Like, I think that's the rape culture that men are part of that we don't really recognize until we're examining it.
Well, it's that weird, I mean, the knuckle dragger mentality that's part of, Western Canada, where, it's like, oh, why didn't you stick around? It's like, because she was going to pass out. She'd had too much to drink. It's not a good scene, man. Like, fuck.
Yeah.
Maybe you just didn't like the smell of vomit. Maybe just not into that. Some people are into vomit porn, some people aren't.
Some
you know
people
what I'm saying?
aren't. That's true. Yeah. I don't know. It's. I had some other examples that kind of came to my mind.
Pretty extreme example there, dude.
Well, it's setting the bar high or low, I guess the case.
Do you know what I always think? I always think of. I always come back to this. I don't know why this really affected me. The Jian Ghomeshi trial.
Oh yeah.
What was her name now? I'm sorry, I'm blanking. The actress from Trailer Park Boys, she testified against him, and she testified that he choked her against her will, and there was things going on that were not correct.
Right.
But then she, the next day, whatever, was still going out with him, right? Or she wrote him letters that was and she explained it on the stand is that she was normalizing what to her was actually traumatic behavior.
Right.
And as a woman listening to her say this, I'm like, this is totally plausible. This is totally a thing that could, and
right.
But to a lot of people, this was like totally, she was so obviously lying because she kept, because she wrote him cute little love notes after and, went to the park with him the next day.
Right.
And I'm just like, no, this is because I think people still have this stereotype of a rapist as person who jumps out of bush, literally forces you to have sex with them at knife point, and that's what a rapist is.
Yeah.
And there is just this thing in our culture where we cannot seem to understand that most rape occurs with somebody
Yeah.
Like it's just that's how it gets. It's just
it's
not
the
usually
creepy dude in the bush. It's
not usually that. I mean, I think everyone agrees. At least it's good. Everyone agrees that's bad. That's good.
It's a starting point.
And everyone agrees that that's rape. But even the term date rape pisses me off because it's like date rape is rape. It's rape. It's not
no, that's
you know
right.
what I mean? It's not a. It's
In my readings, there was like the term acquaintance rape came up in the 80s, and it's like to call rape from somebody that you know, but it is still.
But as long as it's recognized that that's just as bad, and honestly, in some ways, maybe more traumatizing to be violated by somebody you thought you could trust, or somebody that who you're intimate with, or who that you have a relationship with, is almost. I mean, that's terrible.
Actually, when you said at least everybody can agree that the back alley forced rape thing is bad.
Most people agree with that.
Yeah, most. I mean,
but politically, there's not a political party that we're like, well, I can't, guys, just jump out of bushes and rape women at knife point. Like
a young swimmer with a promising future ahead of them.
No, but that was acquaintance. He knew them
he
through
didn't know her.
that. So it was, and it's happening in modern day where if you know the person, somehow it's okay to rape them. I don't understand. It don't make no sense.
No,
but there's and I think you hit the nail on the head when you said entitlement, because that's I think that's because people are like, rape is about power. Maybe the jumping out of the bushes one is. I feel like a lot of it is about entitlement.
Yeah.
I feel entitled. I'm whatever. I want sex. I feel entitled to get it from you. You have to give it to me.
Yeah.
And that's not healthy, and that's not right.
No. And now we just got to convince the rest of the culture of that.
Well, I don't know. I think the part of it is our culture is fucked. Like, I was just thinking, like, what was that joke about, there's so many people say porn is bad, but yet 50 Shades of Grey sold 150 million copies. Like, women won't watch porn, but they'll read the shit out of it. Like, I mean,
There was one line.
It's kind of I don't know. It's kind of a weird thing.
I know women who watch porn.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it was a part of a kind of a bad joke, but yeah.
Not me,
Yeah,
but
no.
no.
Women watching porn is on the rise. Like,
Yeah, it's a
every
thing.
year. Yeah.
Well, I mean,
I don't know that. Why would there be a stigma?
there was a line in the wiki page that said feminists blame this
I
rape
read
on
that.
pornography, and I thought it should have at least said some at the start of the sentence, because there are some feminists who blame pornography for some level of rape culture, because the objectification of women is part of some porn.
Yeah.
Right? Well, arguably all porn.
You know what the big problem with porn actually is? Bad sex, right? Because it creates this expectation that women will be orgasming in 5 seconds as soon as it's not about, it's just so fake that it gives because it's mostly men watching it. I just feel like it's just giving them a bad idea of what
it is. Definitely not a place to educate yourself on sex,
right? In terms of what's going to work for your partner. It's terrible. As a woman, I'm like, oh god, it's terrible.
Here's the thing, and this is a big rabbit hole, but we can't say porn and then understand what we're talking about just by saying porn, because there's so many varieties of it.
Right.
Like nowadays, it's like any kind of porn exists, so it's not like.
Go ahead, Dave. List them. We want to hear.
But Rule 34.
No, but for real though. You're right. But I've had this argument with one of my friends lots, where I say to him, I'm like there is a difference between let's say amateur porn between two regular people who are just enjoying each other's company and they film it. Like there's a difference between that and here's a set with all these people who are like part of the porn industry.
Yeah.
And we're editing it in a clever way and blah, blah, blah,
mainstream porn.
Well,
I think there is a
traditional porn.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, okay. Or, I mean, and I generally, I don't think, I don't have a problem with porn. Porn is what it is. But I would say that child porn is completely unethical and completely not okay. You know what I mean? So everyone says, you know what I mean? But I'm just saying, there's
degrees.
It goes from,
but again, we're going right down to one last concept, and I bring this up every time we talk about this stuff, and it's consent.
Yeah.
It's all about consent. You know what? Again, I'm not going to claim that it's I don't know, okay, so let's say a girl enjoys that kind of behavior that you're describing, right? And they consent to that. Is that immoral? Is that morally wrong because they did that?
Of course not.
Yeah. Right. No, yeah. So again, consent.
You have to say, or nah.
Or nah. So not that I'm encouraging
you gotta
everybody.
play that song, dude.
Well, yeah, not that I'm encouraging everybody go out and do the same thing that you see in every porno, but I think the point I'm making is that consent has to happen at all levels of society and all areas. Like we have to teach kids consent. So ultimately, it's if you're not comfortable with that and that's not what you want, then say no. And we should have a society where people are okay when you say no. And that's just the bottom line. And I don't want to kink shame anybody. If somebody's into some weird stuff, I'm not going to go.
Kink shame. I've never heard that before. I like that. No, I've never heard that term.
Yeah. I mean, it happens a lot, right? People kink shame girls a lot, actually. If you're a hooker, you're a whore, or whatever. I don't know. But so I just feel like
I don't know that many hookers are into being hookers because that's their kink, is it?
Some of them.
Okay. I would think mostly it's a financial decision, but anyways.
No, it's not for everybody.
Really?
No, I think there's a very broad spectrum of sex workers.
Right.
Some enjoy their work.
Yeah, no, for real. Yeah.
All right.
The
more you know.
Again, you can't this. It's so hard to generalize in all these areas.
I don't know. I think it's a hard thing to talk about because there's so many nuances in it.
Exactly. Exactly.
I really like you focusing on the idea of consent as having even broader implications, because I don't know if anyone's seen, there's a series of cartoons on the internet that kind of describes how ludicrous some of our ideas about consent with sex are when you apply it to somebody else. Something there'll be a comic and it'll say dude, that's my car. Why are you driving my car? Well, you told me I could drive your car last week, so this week I decided to just drive your car without asking you, right? And if you think about it in that level, it's absurd to think, for somebody to say, oh, well, we had sex last week, therefore I'm entitled to sex this week.
It's implied consent.
So I really feel that. So then carrying forward from that is that from a very young age, we need to teach kids, first of all, the concept of autonomy, and second of all, the concept of consent.
I totally agree with you.
And understanding those things early in all areas, including people, like, you know, like even like simple things like maybe this person doesn't want a hug, maybe this person doesn't want to be touched, and they have the right to say no. Like I teach my kid that all the time.
Yeah.
You know, and if he says no, he doesn't want a hug, I don't force him to hug his grandmother. Like, you know, we have to learn not to be forced into that kind of stuff. So simple things like that need to be taught to kids to understand like everybody's autonomy, you know, and
totally agree with you.
So that's really where defeating rape culture lies to me. It lies in all of that groundwork.
What do you think of the idea of affirmative consent, or like explicit affirmative consent, rather than just the no is, you know, the opposite of consent?
Yeah. So sex should require enthusiastic consent.
Right. It should be a yes, I want to have sex with you, not no, I'm all right, I'll do it.
And you know, like that, I guess everybody's different, but I find that interesting because I think this has been said before on the show. It's like, if they're not into it, why would I be into it? You know what I mean? Like, like that's the way I look at it.
But I mean,
like,
some people are into that, right?
I think
unfortunately,
we can talk about it intellectually, but when it really comes down to the moment, everyone's got their own weird thing. Like
possibly, yeah.
You know, there's that, that stereotype about, where some women want to be chased and some don't. You know, like, I mean, it gets murky when you get right down to it. But I mean, ultimately, yeah. If there's hesitation on anyone's part, that should be.
It should be a red flag.
Yeah.
Stop sign.
Yeah.
And we should have a culture that says, no, you're not into that's cool. That's fine. Like, you know, like
that's right.
And it's okay. You know, it's like whatever. Just because one person wants sex does not mean they're entitled to get it from the other person. It doesn't matter if you're in a relationship. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
It just doesn't matter.
And you're right. Like, if you had it last week, doesn't mean you can have it this week.
Right.
Like you kind of said about the car thing. It's very similar too. Like, maybe they're not going to be as enthusiastic this next time. Maybe they're like, oh, well, I guess. Interesting.
Well,
I think we solved the problem.
I think we solved rape culture.
We did it. Thanks, guys.
We solved it in leaving it at a very murky moment.
But maybe what we've said can enlighten somebody.
Yeah,
who's
I mean,
not,
I think it boils down to. I think it comes down to that: is if there's hesitation on either part, then
like
pump the brakes.
When we had Dusty Smith on, he said that there was a time in his life where he didn't think rape culture was a thing. And I think that there's a lot of men who are in that boat. They see rape as a bad thing, and they see...
But only the bush rape.
Yeah.
There's
see people condemning rape, and they think, we don't live in a rape culture because I condemn rape, or I was taught that consent was important. But... there's more to it, I think.
Yeah. I mean, I've known a few guys that are like, they just, if they're interested, they just keep.
Right. They'll just keep going, eh?
They just keep, And
then you have.
knocking on that door, so to speak.
Like, I mean, we haven't even really touched on like pickup culture or like the MRA type of idea about like, or Jordan Peterson's enforced monogamy. You know, like
I don't know
any
what
of
the fuck that is.
We haven't
all
even
about
touched
doing.
on any of that stuff that that all plays a role in the male entitlement of view of like the view that they are entitled to women's bodies, and that prevents them from acknowledging autonomy and holding back when there isn't consent.
Can I also say one more thing that just occurred to me about sex is a weird thing in that everyone has a different perspective, and it's important to assume that your partner doesn't have the same perspective as you.
Right.
So it's important to say, I think there might be something going on that says, well, they said no, or they said, nah, they weren't, but they didn't mean it. They were just, when I do that, they're going to be into it, or whatever, and there's a kind of sort of not taking people at their word.
Right.
But it's really important to remember that everyone's perspective on this is different, and not, your perspective is not the only way. Yeah.
And I mean, it's okay for men not to want sex 100% of the time too. Like we're all supposed, like if it
Definitely.
we were taught that in a lot of ways that we were supposed to be chasing sex 100% of the time. And if we didn't chase it and try and get it and achieve that we were failures as men.
Oh, yes, big time.
And that's something that has to change too.
I think we might have a different experience having grown up in Weyburn than maybe somebody in, I don't know, Vancouver might have or something. I don't know. Like
that's possible.
I'm guessing. like we lived in a fairly conservative, misogynist town.
Very, yeah.
so I don't know. Like, but you're right though. Like, it's just like, I remember the locker room talk around that shit. Like,
yeah.
And just like the conquests and the, actually even worse. Like, I mean, I remember in our junior high, like
right.
guys forcefully doing things like going and grabbing this girl's butt and like,
oh yeah,
like
for sure.
shit like that. Right. So,
and it was treated as a joke or like,
or a badge of honor.
Yeah. Or something that they should be doing, not just something that was like,
yeah. I'm sorry.
I totally see how that's the thing that Kavanaugh was thinking. Honestly,
yeah.
Like that it was. What are you reading?
Did you
That's
see
funny.
Dan's comment? I went to Weyburn specifically for sex sometimes. And this is the chat room. I guess so.
I guess so.
Were you a hockey player?
Yeah.
No, just kidding.
No. But I think I don't know. Unless anybody has any closing thoughts, I think done on this.
Sorry, just so we're rape culture bad.
Yes.
Thanks you. Sorry. That's good.
Yeah, rape culture bad.
Rape culture
consent
bad.
good.
Consent good.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you guys. Sorry. Fuck.
Let's cue the outro music.
Wrong outro music.
Wrong outro music. For all the things you can check out in the show notes on our website, brainstormblog.net, and our hosting page, thebrainstormpodcast.com. Thanks to our financial supporters, Kayla, Janet, Kim, Stephanie, Zach, the Utah Outcasts, Will, Aaron, Daryl, Destin Sucks, Bob Glenn, Destin Doesn't Suck That Much, Magnus, several species of small furry animals gathered together in a cave, positively skeptical, Rob, the Podonk Polymath, the Flying Spaghetti Monster, Sauce Be Upon Him, Freethinker215, and Larry. If you want to join them and help the show grow, then you can do that at patreon.com/brainstormpodcast. Or go buy some stuff at tpublic.com/stores/brainstorm-podcast-gear. You can join us every 2 weeks on brainstormradio.net. Our next live show is on November 9th. And I don't actually have a guest lined up. I'm waiting to hear back from someone, and if that falls through, then I'll have to shoot a couple more messages out. The time after that, we will have Dr. Jen Gunter on. So that's fun. I want to give a big thanks to Jillian for joining us. You can find more of her stuff at astroquizzical.tumblr.com. So make sure to check that out. Thank you, Lisa.
You're welcome, Cory.
Thank you, Dave. And, and thank you, Rene, even though he's not here, for coming tonight.
Fuck you, Rene.
Thanks, Dave, for intro music. Thanks to Aaron Rabbi from Embrace the Void for doing the voiceover. You can find his stuff at voidpod.com. Thanks to Alex Kemper-Murdoch for doing the voiceover for our ads. And thanks to Jason Camo for our outro music. You can find his stuff at aloststateofmind.com. All music played is either with permission or under the SOCAN license to play. For more information on SOCAN, you can check out the music license info page on our website, brainstormblog.net. Remember to give us a rating, a thumbs up, or a fave on your podcatcher of choice. Join our Facebook group, like our page, follow us on Twitter, subscribe to our subreddit, sign up for the newsletter, share the show, and spread the word. The more you share, comment, and like our stuff, the more it helps the show grow. Thanks for listening, and remember, the truth matters.
This is an opinion-based podcast. Each person on the podcast is responsible for their own opinions, and those opinions don't necessarily reflect the views of the rest of the panel. Any guests or anyone associated with the people on the podcast, such as spouses, partners, children, other family members, friends, or employers. No one person speaks for the podcast with the possible exception of Cory, and he doesn't speak for anyone else on the show. The Brainstorm podcast does not represent the views of our sponsors.